Welcome to another episode of Twice Told Tales podcast with the News Boss
So
series.
so a court in Iran, I forget which court. Anyway, they have demanded that the U.S. pay $313 million, which seems like a very small sum for the amount of suffering that they've caused Iran, for creating ISIS, and they are also holding Bush and George W. Bush and Obama responsible for that. So I guess I couldn't find actual criminal conviction for them, but I guess they are saying that they should be arrested or whatever. I mean, it's probably just kind of a theatrical response to the ICC stuff, but at the same time, it's very legitimate, and a lot of people who've looked at this issue critically outside of the state narratives would say definitely the U.S. created ISIS. I mean, the U.S. created Al Qaeda, and that's something that the U.S. openly admits to, creating Al Qaeda. So, I mean, we created it. I mean, there's movies about it, like Charlie Wilson's War, the book, it's a pretty good book about how they created Al Qaeda as like they weaponized Islam in Afghanistan in order to turn illiterate peasants into cannon fodder to throw at the Soviet Union, very similar to what they've done to the Nazis in Ukraine. But they created this reactionary force that then, was used as the scapegoat for 9/11, which, because they could be controlled. If you have an enemy that you didn't, if you wage a war against an enemy that isn't fake, it's much harder to fight the war. If you wage all of your wars, like in America, against enemies that you create yourself and you control the enemies, so that the war is basically just a theatrical performance for your country, because of banks, for the sake of financial interest, not because you want to entertain your population, but because you want to exploit their tax revenue. So you want to create a drama which the people pay for with taxes and blood, because they're the ones going to fight it too. It's much easier to do that if you control both sides of the fight, and that's what the U.S. has been doing for a long time in a lot of different cases, which makes me always question things like Ukraine, like how much influence does the U.S. have on both sides of that situation? I don't know, but the U.S. military is very cowardly, I think, when it comes to these kind of engagements. So but ISIS is a great example. They just created it so that they could position it. And a lot of people say, "Oh, why would they create ISIS?" Oh, if you think of it the way the propaganda tells you, then it sounds stupid to say that the U.S. created ISIS. But if you think about it as if you're trying to manipulate facts on the ground, they couldn't declare war in Syria because the red line thing, they tried it. Obama tried it hard, and the population revolted. They were like, we're not going to have another war. But he still got his war, because instead of fighting a war against Damascus, all they did is they said, oh, there's this terrorist group in there. We're going to go do anti-terrorism. And of course, it's their terrorist group that they figured out how to get developed in the country. And then they would just position it. They'd just be like, call up ISIS on a secret phone, and they'd be like, go to this village. And then the U.S. would be like, oh, there's ISIS in this village. We have to bomb that village. And then they would, ISIS would camp out next to the village. They would bomb the village. They would get the bombing that they wanted. They wanted the bombing. They just needed an excuse for it. So, and then the ISIS guys are these young bandits. And then they were like, yeah, well, when we're done with our destruction that we want to get, you can go loot it. You can go rape. You can go do what you want to do, have fun, and then take what you want and then move on to the next thing. So all the young psychos who were in those groups got what they wanted, because they got to torture people and they got to rape people, because these are all psychopaths. And then they got paid also stipend. And they're doing the same thing. That's the same thing with the Nazis in Ukraine. It's the same MO everywhere.
True. And the interesting thing is, I think this ruling by the Iranian court is based on like high profile or high ranking US officials' confessions, which happen only during the time of the elections when they want to expose each other. They say like, this one, like you created ISIS, or ISIS was created at their time, or Al Qaeda. I mean, this is something that some US officials have kind of implied that ISIS was also created by them. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's basis for that. And it's also
the funding.
because,
there's a funding trail. I mean, the management of savagery, Max lays out pretty well in his book. And there's a number of, it's all open source. It's not like, oh, we have some, you have to have secret knowledge to
it's
know
not
that.
some conspiracy theory. It's just there, and everyone
the
can look
conspiracy is the media, the way the mainstream media reports it, because they all together kept it under a certain narrative. So everyone, when they reported, it sounds like an evil Muslim force that is probably aligned with the Ayatollahs, because it's like Muslim and all spooky, crazy people are all. I mean, it's like it preys on the ignorance of the American public who don't understand what's going on and really don't understand Islam, and so it's like all a bunch of crazy people is what basically the media gets you to believe. But in reality, I mean, this is anti-Muslim. This force is a very anti-Muslim force. I mean, not,
who are the largest? Who are the who? I mean, Muslims are the largest in number, the victims of ISIS.
Sure, but
I mean,
even let's say they didn't kill Muslims, they still are anti-Muslim because they're not. I mean, it's like Israel is the biggest anti-Semitic organization in the world, because it demonizes the religion. It takes the name of the religion and flies it over a crime and says this crime is this religion.
Difference,
what?
Yeah, no. but the difference is, I would say, like the ones who are fighting ISIS in the region are Muslims. And I hope we will see more Jews standing up to Israeli crimes. Yeah, and it's also important to remember that, as I said, Muslims are the foremost victims of ISIS crimes, and nobody's talking about that. It's like the way they're depicting this terrorist group is that they have the Islamic ideology, which is not true. I mean, they claim to have it, but it's not true. And this court, this Iranian court ruling, actually is because Iran was a victim, and Iranians were a victim of ISIS attacks, both in recently, just a few months ago, there was an attack in Shiraz, but I think this court ruling is about the 2017 attack on the parliament by ISIS, which ISIS took credit for it, and that killed like tens of people. And that's why, I mean, Iran is suing the US for perpetrating this crime against its citizens.
That's like a paltry sum. $300 million seems like not enough. But maybe they can sell the embassy off to some construction project, pay it off.
To sell what?
The old embassy property that's in Tehran. The U.S. embassy property.
Is there any property left?
Something useful on that property instead of leaving it as just build some practical thing like a university or something.
It's a museum.
That's
it's a very good museum.
Yeah, but it's a museum to an empire that's irrelevant, so you should just erase it.
Well, it's a museum of the CIA's activities during the Pahlavi and how they plotted for.
Yeah, it's true. It's very useful. Good propaganda.
Yes. Yeah, okay, so that's about it.
Propaganda isn't always a lie. Propaganda is sometimes just the appropriate use of the truth. So
yeah, I mean,
a lot of people think propaganda.
The word
but it doesn't.
Exactly. The word propaganda did not used to be only negative, and it's still in the academic arena. It's not only negative. It can be neutral, and it means what you propagate to change people's
marketing
ideas about something, or yes. Okay.
All right. Well, there you go. There's our propaganda for this week. Thanks for joining us, and see you again next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe.